Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 730. My opponent kicked off with d4. I played knight f6. I wanted to play the Grunfeld, and he let me play it this time instead of coming with knight f3, which is seems to be very popular in Blitz these days. I guess it's a simple way to play, and White can get the moves out quickly. Instead, he went for mainline opening with c4. I went with g6, which can be either the King's Indian or the Grunfeld, or other openings as well, but those are the two most popular lines. And then he goes knight c3 here, and I get in d5, which has to be played now. If you don't play d5 immediately, then White can get in the e4 move and just prevent that. So got to play it right at this point if you want to play the Grunfeld. And then he took, which is the main move, although he didn't follow it up in the normal way. So if you wanted to play a non-standard Grunfeld, there are these other lines which are pretty interesting. You can go with, let's see, yeah, I didn't really follow them out. You can go with knight f3 and get a kind of quiet setup. You just delay taking here and come out with queen b3 and put pressure on the center this way, taking now, or developing the bishop. Or you can back up. You can also develop the bishop immediately to f4 or to g5. And those will give you kind of atypical Grunfeld positions. But c takes d5 is usually the preliminary to the mainline Grunfeld. You take back, and then the main move here is to kick that knight with e4. Black exchanges off this knight, and White gets a big center, and Black tries to undermine it. Typical Grunfeld strategy. My opponent played the unusual move here, knight takes d5. And this is just not as good. I mean, there are other ways. You know, if you get to this point and you decide you don't want to do a mainline Grunfeld, these other moves here, bishop d2 or g3, are also reasonable ways to play, even knight f3. I'm not sure about knight a4, but I looked at those three, at least came up in the computer evaluation as reasonable moves. But this one pretty much allows Black to equalize. The thing is, this queen is guarding the e4 square, so White is never going to get in that e4 move. And Black's a little better developed, which is unusual so early in the opening. White typically has that opening advantage. And then e3 needs to be played sooner or later, which will lead to kind of a passive setup for White. So already Black has equalized. So anyway, my opponent played knight f3, and we're just out of the opening book, so we can look at it in this tab. Let's see, I just do normal development. He goes b3. He's going to defend the pawn with his bishop. And I play knight c6. Now, knight c6 is not a blunder per se, but it's in the way of the c-pawn. I think it's better. You almost always want to play the move c5 in the Grunfeld, and right here would be a good time because he hasn't placed a bishop on b2 just yet. So if I play c5, he can't take it. I've got that bishop looking at his rook. So this is my opportunity to get in the move c5, and I should really take it. So knight c6 is a small mistake. It's still playable, but not the best move. Let's see, he goes bishop b2, I castle, and e3. And then because my knight is here, you know, I'm struggling to find moves here. I'm trying to figure out where to put my bishop and stuff like that. Now the chess engine, I briefly thought about moving the queen during the game. The chess engine thinks that queen a5 check is the best way to proceed here. If you play the queen to a5, if he blocks with the knight, then this d-pawn is weakened because the knight is blocking the view of the queen to that square, and you can play e5 right away. So, so the chess engine says the best move is queen d2. After this exchange, the knight comes here, and you still get in this e5 move. So that's a way for Black to continue here and have a good game. Anyway, I went bishop g4. Still, I think I'm okay, but I'm kind of slowly giving up that advantage I had out of the opening, or giving the advantage back to White a little bit, but still playable. He goes bishop e2, I go rook a d8, and he castles. And yeah, like I said, I was kind of running out of ideas. This knight is blocking the c-pawn, and you know, I think I mentioned this during the game. Instead of playing the rook to d8, maybe it'd be better off putting this rook over here to c8 and trying to develop the knight that way and push the c-pawn forward, open up the c-file. It'd be a reasonable plan here. So rook a8, another one of these slight mistakes he castled, and then rook f8, f to e8, and then by this point, white has actually a significant edge. I guess the chess engine, I was thinking about e5. The chess engine says I can play e5 here, but it leads to a lot of simplification. Say knight takes, I'm going to be forced to trade this bishop, and then, well, I can take off the knight, and I can grab here, and then he can trade another pair of bishops if he wants to. This is a very even position. I mean, it's 4 versus 3 over here and 3 versus 2 over here, but really not a whole lot going on. So it's probably not too bad for black, but not very inspiring. But by avoiding that kind of line, I just end up in a position that's worse. So you have to not only look at the consequences of your move, but the consequences of not playing it, I guess. And in this case, the move e5, though it was not inspiring, the other moves were worse. So he's got some edge, and let's see, he kicks my bishop. I have nothing better to do than to trade it off, and then he puts his queen to. Oh no, he's hitting my queen. I drop my queen back to d7, brings his rook out here, and he's just got this pressure on the c file there, and he's piling up on my knight. So he's going to inflict some kind of damage and come out of this with an advantage. So white is definitely better here. I decided to go with e5 right away. His best move here actually is to go ahead and take the knight. Just go ahead and inflict this pawn damage, then take on e5, force some trades, and then go for an endgame. Let's see, rook c. And actually something similar to this happens in the game. So this was just his kind of first opportunity to get into this endgame, which is just better for him. Let's see if we count the pawns. I still have 6 pawns to 6 pawns, but he's going to round up some of these weak pawns. I can't really hold on to them all, and that's a really good endgame for him. So, but he wasn't so eager to go into the endgame either. I can understand why, and he's got a good position, so there's no reason that he has to do that. Although after this move, d takes e5, the chess engine says if I just play queen to c8 here, then it's a tempo on his queen that actually I hold on to all my material, and his queen moves, I can move my knight. I can take this pawn with the knight and come out of this okay. So when he didn't immediately go for the endgame, he actually gave me a chance to equalize again. But in this point, I didn't spot that queen c8 idea. That's pretty straightforward, I guess. But well, I don't know. You have to move the queen back and cravenly defend. But that's the best move here. So I went for the endgame. I took the queens off. Let's see, which way did he take back? He took back with the f rook, and I took the rooks off. The idea is just to get this rook off of the c file here, so that I can grab this pawn with my knight, but I'm giving up this pawn on b7, and so I'm a pawn down here, and I don't have a lot to show for it. There is a little tactic in this position. It doesn't win any material, but it maybe gives me better drawing chances in the endgame. So if you want to take a moment here, see if you can spot that tactical idea for black. Okay, I'm going to play the tactic now. Pause the video if you want time to think about it. Anyway, it's a pretty simple one. It's knight to f3 check, and of course it's a discovered attack on his undefended bishop here. Let's see, say he takes his knight, takes my knight with his bishop, I take off his bishop, and now I'm a pawn down and I have a worse pawn structure, but I do have an opposite colored bishop, and so maybe I can try and arrange a rook trade and find some kind of drawn endgame. So that would have been actually a better move than what I played. After rook b8, it's the evaluation has gone up to like +3 in favor of white. He has a pawn to start with. He has the bishop pair, and he's going to pick up a second pawn because my pawns are all weak and scattered. So a significant advantage to white, and should be an easy win, really. But somehow he starts playing second best moves along here. Let's see, he drops his bishop back to e4. I think that's not a problem. Let's see, I push my pawn forward, and well, he brings his rook here, naturally hitting my knight and hitting the pawn and I played knight to c6. So he's still doing okay. He's still winning here. Rook to e8 is a better try to just kind of hold on to things here. I played knight c6, and here he had, oh yeah, he played this right. So he just keeps taking material off and going for this endgame. So this is all winning and still in that range of +3 or so for white. Takes here, hitting my knight. And then right here, okay, so this is where he starts going downhill. He could just play a3 here to kick my knight, just because I'm attacking a pawn. And you don't necessarily want to keep that pawn on a2 forever. So a3, and where's my knight going even? His bishop is covering all of these squares. So that leaves me the choice of going to a2 or to a6. At least knight to a6 comes with a tempo. And then, let's see, I could go with some sort of passive defense like rook to b6 to hold on to my knight. Or I could move the knight away to c7 and he gets a third pawn. So anyway, all that is clearly winning for white. So his first little misstep is he goes passive, drops his bishop back, and just defends the a-pawn. So I play rook d8, which is a pretty natural move, just threatening to fork the king and the bishop. He drops the rook back, which I wasn't sure about that move, but I looked it up, looked at it with the chess engine, and the engine finds this to be the best move here. So rook to c1, defending the back rank, pretty reasonable. But now I play rook d2. And then once again, he should play a3 and just chase my knight away. I don't know why he was so reluctant to play that move. In fact, he moved a pawn here, but he moved the f-pawn, which weakens this pawn. So first I grabbed this pawn. He went ahead and traded. So now we're into a rook and pawn endgame where he just has a one pawn edge. Maybe he's still winning with good technique from white, but it could be it's just a draw. Sometimes a one pawn advantage in a rook and pawn endgame is not enough to win. Hard to say. There's pawns on both sides of the board, so it's not a clear-cut case. Okay, let's see. He put his rook behind the pawn with rook to b1. You know, he could have maybe taken an opportunity there to push this pawn forward, because my next move is to play f5, making sure that that e-pawn can't come forward, and I'm going to attack it. Let's see, he played king h2. Don't know what that's about. And yeah, if his king had gone the other way, he could also have prevented my rook from coming here to e2 by just bringing his king into the center. You want your king to be active in the endgame. I know what his idea was. Now that I'm thinking about it, he is trying to activate his king. He's trying to go this way, and he's using this pawn as a shield, because otherwise he's trapped on the second rank. So okay, so that wasn't so bad really. But it does allow me to play rook e2. And then he should just go for this exchange here. If he plays rook a1 here, I take this pawn. He takes my pawn with check. And, well, my king will move somewhere. Say I go to h6 to try and hold on to things and keep my king active. And he can defend his pawn with rook to b7. So he can actually stay a pawn up. And it is an outside passed pawn here. But still, this is not a clear win. This is maybe a draw. It's just hard to win. Hard to get this pawn past the rook and all the way to the touchdown with my active rook. And his king is still out of the action here. So might still be drawing. He would still have winning chances, but probably a draw if I played that well. Anyway, instead he pushed on with b4, gave up another pawn. So now it's even. Then he went king g3. And well, I dropped my rook back to e7, defending my pawn. Didn't want to give it up. Also, I can attack his pawn from the front. It's not the ideal square for a rook. You want your rook behind the pawn, but he's already behind that pawn, so I can't get behind it. And it does do a dual job here of attacking his pawn and defending my pawn. So that's a good move, I think. Let's see, he came in here with king f4, go rook b7, and he goes g4. And so right here, I mean, there's this common tactical motif you should always be aware of when you have rooks facing off against each other like this, and there are pawns on adjacent files, which is to try and take advantage of the pin by playing a move like a5. Now, it doesn't work right away because he can push that pawn forward, so you move the rook forward to block the pawn, and now you're threatening to play a5. And he really needs to respond to this. Rook to a1, and the game is still drawn. Let's see, I think I can, let's see, I can get a check here. King goes back to g3, and check. King to h4. This was the computer line, rook b7. Yeah, actually I can go a pawn up here because I do take that with check, but he has drawing chances. So this is kind of the other side of the position we looked at earlier, where he had the extra pawn and I still had drawing chances. Now I've got the extra pawn and he has drawing chances, but that would be his best try at this point. He's got to deal with this threat somehow. Otherwise I get a pawn that's not only passed, but it's also in front of my rook, and that's very dangerous. So let's see. So his king g3 move, you know, he's trying to get away from that check, I guess, but that allows me to play a5, and so now this is just losing. Let's see, he goes rook c1. It just shows the power of the getting the rook behind the pawn, because we're looking at all those positions where you know, it was a similar material allocation of 3 pawns on this side of the board for each of us, and 1 extra pawn over here for one side or the other. And most of those were likely draws, likely draws with good play. But this one is simply a win, and it's because my rook is behind the pawn, and I can just push that forward and then bring my king over to make a queen. So he tries to harass me with this check. This probably doesn't help a whole lot. As I pointed out during the game, I eventually am going to, let's see, he went with g5. I'm eventually going to start pushing this pawn, and he has to bring his rook back. And, you know, the other thing he could have tried here was the checks. He could have just played something like check, check, and at this point I have to make a decision to give up the pawn. So I'd probably come out. But if he grabs the pawn, then I'll push here. And he is too late to get back and defend it. So in fact, this pawn is already so advanced that he can't afford to grab my pawn over there. So that also wins for me. Anyway, he tried g5, and I push. And now he gets his rook back in time to get in front of the pawn. And I force his rook in front of the pawn, and then I start bringing my king in. So let's see, he plays his pawn forward. I think this is all pretty straightforward. And my king is just getting over here faster than his king. And let's see, went all the way to d2. So I move my king here. It defends my pawn and also keeps his king from getting any closer. Notice the rook is guarding that square, and my king is guarding these squares. So his king is shielded. It can't approach any further. Let's see, he played h4. Now I check to drive his king away. And then my king steps over here to win the rook. And after that, it's a win. So he played on a few moves. I'm just going to step through this. There is a kind of neat checkmating technique here at the end, where his king gets boxed in here. And let's see, what's the fastest way? Yeah, I think I played this the fastest way. His king has 2 squares it can move to. And I can take those squares away. But if I go here directly, his king will come here, and then my rook can't come over to checkmate. So what I want to do is I want to get to the situation where kings are here and here, facing each other, but it's his turn to move, and he has to step away because he can't go onto this line. He has to go back here, and I'll mate him. So I have to kind of lose a move. So I play my king to f2, and well, I've taken away this square, so his king has no moves except to go here, and now I can step in front of his king, and I've got the situation I wanted. His only move is here, and then my rook comes over to mate. So a nice little mating technique you can play in the endgame. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.